Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriel Sott, and I am the host of Lockport Township High School's very first SCP podcast.
And I'm Rowan Wallenberg, the co-host?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so you may be wondering, what is SCP? Well, SCP is a term, an acronym. It stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. What exactly that means, well, that's what you'll find out. Now, to learn a bit more, the SCP Foundation is a fictional organization taking place on a free website under the Creative Commons license, so anyone can use it, make whatever things they want. But you might be wondering, what are the things? Well, an SCP is an anomalous object, entity, location, or event. And, well, today we'll be talking about the first ever SCP for our first ever episode, SCP-173. How the episode is structured is we'll read out the containment log, give our little thoughts on the SCP, just ramble on about it, and then if we have the time, we'll do an addendum, which is a short story or addition to the SCP. So I'll take it away with the beginning of SCP-173's containment log. Item number, SCP-173. Object class, Euclid. Special containment procedures. Item SCP-173 is to be kept in a locked container at all times. When personnel must enter SCP-173's container, no fewer than 3 may enter at any time and the doors to be relocked behind them. At all times, 2 persons must maintain direct eye contact with SCP-173 until all personnel have vacated and relocked the container.
Description. Moved to Site 19, 1993. Origin is as of yet unknown. It is constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile. The object cannot move while within direct line of sight. Line of sight must not be broken at any time with SCP-173. Personnel assigned to enter container are instructed to alert one another before blinking. Object is reported to attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull or by strangulation. In the event of an attack, personnel are to observe Class 4 hazardous object containment procedures. Personnel report sounds of scraping stone originating from within the container when there is no one present inside. This is considered normal, and any change in this behavior should be reported to the acting HMCL supervisor on duty. The reddish-brown substance on the floor is a combination of feces and blood. Origin of these materials is unknown. The enclosure must be cleaned on a bi-weekly basis.
And thus concludes the reading of SCP-173's entry. Now, I've got to say, SCP-173, being the first one, it's rather mundane. It's
kind of boring.
Yeah, it's unique in a sense, but it's not special, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's the only one like it, but it's nothing, like, extravagant.
Yeah. There's, cooler ones out there.
SCP-173 is really popular, among the community. It's featured in practically every single SCP game ever, and there's tons of, addendums and short stories about it. It's gone so far out of the SCP fandom. And there's something else I wanted to say about SCP-173, and that's regarding its image, how it looks. There's been some recent controversy, surrounding it. The image was originally taken from an artist. I'm unsure of the name. Yeah, I can't find it right now. But if I do... Oh.
Izumi Kato.
Yeah, that's it. Good job.
Did it.
Yeah. The image was... Izumi Kato is a Japanese artist. He makes sculptures, and SCP-173 originated from a 4chan post. The user took the image called Untitled 2004 and used it as the face of SCP-173. Izumi Kato let the SCP fandom use the image, but not for any monetary gains. So they could use it as the likeness of SCP-173, but without making money off it, which, well, makes sense since the whole website is under Creative Commons, which makes everything on it free. And there's they're trying to change the image, how he looks, just so they can
Make profit.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable. If I owned, like, the most popular anomalous object on the world, I would want to make a profit off of it, too.
I feel like they didn't think it was going to get so popular, and that's why they were like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine if we just use this dude's
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
it was just, like, a little 4chan post.
Yeah.
Like, 2006, I think it was? I'm pretty sure.
It was maybe 04?
That was the date the image was taken.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm 90% sure it was 2006. But that really concludes all the controversy on SCP-173 that we have to talk about right now. Now, for the second segment of the episode, we're going to be talking about the addendums. An addendum, as I said earlier, is a short story on the SCP, usually non-canon, is just something for fun that people write.
Kind of like fan fiction.
Never say that again, but yeah, it's like fan fiction of SCP. So the addendum we're going to be reading today is SCP-173's Containment Breach Addendum, where he learns how to perform mitosis, apparently, and breaches containment and goes on a rampage. Now, I'll read up to Addendum 2, and then Rowan will finish off with Addendum 5. Right? No. Addendum 5, 6, and 4. Yeah. Alright. Item SCP-173. Object Class Euclid. Addendum 1. On Redacted, SCP-173 appeared to multiply, producing 2 identical copies. 2 D-Class personnel were killed. It is unknown how this process occurred. Each instance of SCP-173, now labeled SCP-173-1 and SCP-173-2, is to be moved to individual cells with each following original containment procedures. Addendum 2. On Redacted, a second multiplication event occurred. SCP-173-1 through -4 are to each be contained as per original containment procedures. Objects reclassed as Keter. Addendum 3. Security breach occurred on Redacted. Assuming a simple geometric progression, at least 61 copies of SCP-173 are as of now unaccounted for. It is unknown how they replicated so fast or how they replicate at all. Video evidence of the containment breach shows multiple instances of SCP-173 working in unison across multiple cells to achieve the breach. Most of the instances still in captivity appear to form a rear guard, blocking Foundation agents from pursuing other instances. It is theorized that SCP-173 has a hive intelligence, or intelligence scales with number of nearby copies. See revised security protocols for containing SCP-173. Revised special containment procedures. All copies of SCP-173 are to be contained in form-fitting metal containers and sent using SCP Redacted to the now abandoned Foundation facility on the Moon. They are to be fitted with tracking collars that will detect if any of them leave the Moon.
Addendum 4. SCP-173 has caused a breach of secrecy for the SCP Foundation. Estimates at this time are roughly 500,000 civilian deaths across North America in the last 48 hours due to SCP-173, and hundreds of thousands of sightings and pieces of video evidence. Major television news programs have obtained a video of SCP-173 and are now providing instructions for avoiding instant death. Dr. Phillips Matthews Clef Gear Scott Dracky Bright is in charge of the containment. Addendum 5. SCP-173 has besieged and destroyed 4 Foundation facilities near simultaneously in the last 24 hours. Each instance shows the characteristic strength exhibited in the original, and thousands working in unison are capable of ripping open concrete bunkers and comprising foot-thick steel doors. Research is ongoing to find a way to combat this threat. Personal log of Dr. Bright. Date redacted. I've been killed 37 times in the last week. They can smell me, somehow, regardless of what body I'm in. The majority decision of the remaining 05s is that this is an XK, and they're going to deal with this problem, or the Russians are. They're evacuating the space, which means there won't be a single Foundation scientist anywhere in the New World. They say they're going to try to evacuate the surviving civilians, but I doubt it. There can't be more than a couple hundred people in all of North America. The only good news is that about 150 of those bastards teamed up and ripped SCP-682 apart, brought a smile to my face. Revised Special Containment Procedures. Containment Zone X1, formerly North and South America, is to be denied access, following saturation nuclear bombing on redacted. Number of SCP-173 instances have been reduced. All available Foundation resources are to be redirected to monitoring the oceans to ensure the integrity of Containment Zone X1. Foundation adjuncts from the national navies are to be performed around-the-clock patrols and sonar sweeps. Detected instances are to be contained and removed to SCP redacted for transport to the Lunar Containment Site. Addendum 6. Verified sighting of SCP-173 in redacted Wales, the United Kingdom. Nuclear bombardment authorized and executed. No survivors.
And that was the entirety of the addendum for SCP-173. Now that was a pretty interesting one, to be honest. In case you didn't truly understand, it's a short story in which SCP-173 escapes from the Foundation facility, learns how to multiply, and eventually takes over the entire world.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Results in an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario, which is a fancy word for apocalypse. Now, you may have heard some new terminology in that addendum, like Safe, Euclid, Keter, and Dr. Bright. Not really terminology, but a rather interesting fellow, and I really want to do an episode on him later. So, a safe SCP is, well, pretty obviously an SCP that's safe. It's not hard to contain, it doesn't do much damage, and sometimes they can even help and assist the Foundation, SCP-999.
And a Euclid is a primary object class that describes an item or entity that is either unpredictable or otherwise insufficiently well understood as to be reliably contained. Many consider this the default classification for new objects, until such time that they are better understood or determined to be more dangerous than previously thought. Many consider any sentient and/or sapient entity to be automatically Euclid rather than safe, due to the fact that any entity with a mind of its own can always choose to stop cooperating with us. Named after a famous mathematician, see object classes for more information. Keter, a primary object class that describes an item or entity that either cannot be reliably contained or otherwise poses an immediate threat to humanity. Keter class objects and entities are highly dangerous and have extremely complex containment procedures, named after the topmost of the Sephirot in the Jewish Kabbalah.
Those are all the object classes based on containment. Now, in later episodes, you'll hear some different ones, like Apollyon, but those are more so referred to danger, and, well, I'll get into more of those once we get to actually SCPs that use those. Now, one other thing you may have heard is Dr. Bright. Dr. Bright is, well, a researcher in the SCP Foundation who was affected by his own SCP, a necklace that basically lets him transfer his consciousness to anybody who touches it. So he's basically immortal. And the guy is insane, like, down to the bone. And when I get the chance to do an episode on him, it's going to be probably a special one, but look out for that one. And now, to close off our episode, we're going to do a little joke SCP. For the first episode, we're going to do my absolute favorite, SCP-_-J. Item number, SCP-_-J. Object class, _. Special containment procedures. In a box in my office. Description. It's a rock that makes you procrastinate.
Addendum. Probably memetic or something. I'll finish writing this up later. Dr. Vang.
And that concludes today's first episode of the SCP podcast here at Lockport Township High School. I'll look forward to getting more episodes out soon, and I'll see y'all next time.